Hello, my name is Matt Weezy. I'm the Marquette County Prosecuting Attorney, and I'm the current president of the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. On behalf of Pam and the Crime Victims Foundation, I would like to welcome to the Vigil victims, their families, their friends, and their communities. April 18th to the 24th is Crime Victims' Rights Week, and it reminds us to support and recognize victims and build trust and engage our communities. This yearly vigil in recognition of crime victims will hopefully serve as a reminder to us throughout the year to always keep in mind the needs of crime victims and survivors. Michigan led the nation over 3 decades ago by establishing crime victims' rights as part of our Michigan Constitution and also by adopting the Michigan Crime Victims' Rights Act. Traditionally, we would hold the vigil at the Capitol so we could gather and remember and honor those crime victims and allow those impacted by crime to share their stories with families and with their friends. Today, I'm in the historic Marquette County Courthouse, where I have prosecuted many felony-level domestic violence, criminal sexual conduct, homicide, and other serious crimes of violence. I've always believed that victims' voices not only need to be heard, but they also need to be listened to. And symbolically, I can think of no better place for that to happen than where prosecutors ultimately seek justice on behalf of crime victims here in the courtroom. Because of health and safety concerns, we are not able to do this in person this year, but we're doing this virtually so that people can share their stories, so we can recognize those who are leading the effort to ensure that crime victims and survivors receive the services they need and the protections they deserve. I would like to thank our partners who have been involved with this work, including the Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, the parents of murdered children, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Division of Crime Victim Services, the Crime Victim Services Commission, the Michigan Tribal-Based Services Providers, the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, the Michigan Sheriff's Association, and the Michigan State Police, as well as the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the Canine Advocacy Program, and the Michigan State Council of Junior Leagues, as well as all of Michigan's prosecutors and the numerous community-based victim services providers around our state, and all the others who work tirelessly to assist crime victims in their journey toward wholeness and healing. Today you will hear from speakers about victims' rights. You will hear from presenters and award recipients. The Crime Victim Foundation of Michigan has chosen several outstanding individuals to recognize for their work in this area. And finally, just as if we were in person, we will have a moment of silence to honor and remember our loved ones and those that we have lost and all the survivors whose lives have been impacted by crime. I now invite you to listen as people share their thoughts on this important matter.
Hello, and welcome to Michigan's 2021 National Crime Victim Rights Week. The first Crime Victim Rights Week was 40 years ago, and 40 years ago, there were no rights for victims. They were often prohibited from being in court. They were often subject to a brutal cross-examination about their lives and their motives, especially women and victims of sexual assault. There was no right to information about the process. There was no right to consult with the attorney, with the prosecutor. There was no right to address the court before sentencing. There was no right to restitution. And there were very few service providers able to help victims cope with the oftentimes devastating emotional and financial costs of being victimized. But Michigan was fortunate. In 1982, a man named Bill Van Regenmoorder was elected to the state house, later serving in the state senate. And for 24 years, victims had a passionate and effective voice in policymaking and advocacy. Bill not only wrote Michigan's Crime Victim Rights Act, he also helped over 36 other states write their laws and their constitutional amendments. He helped all crime victims across the country. He helped change the legal landscape, and he helped change how our culture views victims. A very productive alliance of victims, law enforcement, prosecutors, and advocates was formed, and it was through persistence and hard work that today we have the rights we do have for victims, and we have the infrastructure of support that I'm hoping all of you are able to access. Today, Crime continues to touch all communities, and in some communities, it almost seems to touch every household. Far too often, violence stalks our streets, it preys on our most vulnerable citizens. And over the years, I work with various victims and on various cases, and I have a chart of 12 murder cases. And the red balloons are the 12 murder victims, and the blue balloons are the immediate family members across the state who were also so deeply touched by their loss. And I chose victims in various parts of the state just to show you how interconnected Michigan is and how powerfully victimization affects communities beyond just where the crime itself may have occurred. If you add in coworkers, friends, church families, and more, it would almost fill this chart. Friends, today is a day of hope. Victims do have advocates, and I trust you are one of them. If you are, thank you for so doing. Victims have rights, and you may be someone helping people exercise those rights. And if you are one of those folks, thank you for so doing. Victims finally have voices, although many more are needed. I would encourage you to continue being that voice and to start. And if you have not been one of those voices, that this week, next week, soon, start being one of those voices. The goal this next year is to support victims, to build trust, and to engage communities. And let's all work together to do that. Thank you for watching. If you're a victim, Godspeed in your recovery. If you're an advocate, thank you for standing in the gap, and may the upcoming year be a productive one.
Hi, I'm Attorney General Dana Nessel. I'm honored to participate in this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week Vigil and to reflect upon this year's theme: support victims, build trust, engage communities. This week marks the 40th anniversary of National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Every April since 1981, we've come together during National Crime Victims' Rights Week to learn about the impact of victimization on individuals and their loved ones, to protect and promote victim-centered laws and policies, to learn how to better shape and support programs to meet the needs of victims, to recognize the efforts of the community of people who work to support victims of crime, and to remember the victims who drive us to do the work. Over the past year, the Department of Attorney General worked to reach beyond the challenges of 2020 to continue to seek justice on behalf of crime victims in Michigan. In each case, our dedicated attorneys and staff worked to keep goals front and center. First, delivering justice for victims, and second, making sure we do everything we can to protect victims' rights in that process. This week, we recognize those that have experienced victimization and honor their strength and their courage. We also express gratitude to those who work on behalf of victims, and I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the individuals being recognized by the Crime Victim Foundation. Genesee County Prosecutor David Layton, Little Traverse Bay Bands of Indians Lead Victim Advocate Stacy Adewajizek, and Detroit Police Chief James Craig. Thank you for your work and for your dedication. The Michigan Department of Attorney General is committed to supporting victims under many different circumstances. Our department's Victims' Rights Unit provides support to victims and helps them to navigate the criminal justice system. And throughout my time as Attorney General, I've worked to grow the Victims' Rights Unit with specialized advocates to address the various forms of victimization individuals face. Earlier this month, my office filed a brief in the Michigan Supreme Court advocating for the privacy of personally identifiable information of victims and witnesses. This issue speaks directly to the heart of Crime Victims' Rights Week. As a rule, prosecutors shield the identity of victims and witnesses in order to encourage their willingness to work with law enforcement, guard against them becoming a victim of identity theft, and to ensure their safety throughout the criminal prosecution process. Absent the ability to ensure victim confidentiality, law enforcement's ability to pursue and prosecute criminals could be hindered, victims and witnesses may face intimidation and threats, and justice could be delayed. Changing the practice of keeping victims safe would set us back decades, and I am prepared to partner with the legislature to enshrine this practice into state law if necessary. There's even more we can do, and I'm committed to working together to get it done. So, thank you for giving me a few minutes to share with you some of the important work we're doing at the Department of Attorney General. I am honored to join with you in recognizing National Crime Victims' Rights Week, and I look forward to future opportunities to partner with one another.
Hi, my name is Sarah Anthony, and I serve as state representative for Michigan's 68th House District. I am honored to present the 2021 Champion for Crime Victims Award to Mr. David Layton. David was elected Genesee County Prosecuting Attorney in 2004 and has since been re-elected 4 times. Prior to his service as prosecutor, he served 12 years on the Flint Township Board of Trustees and 3 as a trustee and 9 as clerk. Mr. Layton is the past president of both the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan and the Genesee County Bar Association. He is receiving this award due to his long-standing commitment to victims. He is a member of the board of directors of the Weiss Advocacy Center, which is an organization that supports children who have been abused and neglected. As part of the mission of the Michigan Human Trafficking Task Commission, he reviews existing services available for human trafficking victims, including crime victim assistance, healthcare, and legal assistance. He has also worked hard to establish a program to increase awareness of available services for crime victim survivors. Most recently, he serves on the SCALE task force for open courts, advocating for the protection, respect, and honor of victims in the courtroom process. He has built a strong legacy throughout his career, providing for crime victims' rights, elevating the voices of victims, and making sure that they are protected and safe. In recognition of the admirable efforts to enhance crime victims' rights, I am proud to present David Layton, Genesee County Prosecuting Attorney, with the 2021 Champion for Crime Victims Award. Congratulations.
It's an honor to receive the Champion for Crime Victims Award, and I want to thank the Crime Victim Foundation for this very special and meaningful recognition. And I want to congratulate the other honorees for the work they do day in and day out on behalf of Michigan's crime victims. Those who know me will tell you that I like to define my role as prosecutor as that of minister of justice. And while holding criminals responsible for their actions is an important part of the job, there are many other duties and responsibilities involved in the pursuit of justice, and none is more important than being an advocate for victims. I can assure you that by standing up for victims, protecting their rights, and assisting them in so many different ways, it's always something at the forefront of our mission here in the Genesee County Prosecutor's Office. And while I'm pleased to be the one accepting this award, I share the honor with everyone in my office, from the support staff, the paralegals, the assistant prosecutors, and the managers, and especially our crime victim advocates, Lisa Jaworski, Patrice Gilmore, and Katie Snyder, and their assistants, Michelle and Sarah, Nikki Fargo, Don Sharif Kuhn, and Rebecca Varela. They are the true champions. They are the ones who tirelessly dedicate themselves to pursuing justice, to making our community a better place, and to standing up for victims during some of the toughest periods of their lives. So thank you for shining a light on the rights of victims and for giving them a stage and amplifying their voices. I'm proud to be a prosecutor, and I'm honored to be recognized as a champion for crime victims.
I am State Representative Graham Filler I'm the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. Before elected, I served as an assistant attorney general, bringing charges against health professionals who broke the public trust and also contractors who bilked senior citizens out of money. I still remember a victim saying to me, and the whole process had been so hard on her. She said, "God, I hope that no one has to feel this horrendous feeling I'm going through." And I really took that to heart. I'll be working with the Prosecutors Association this term on creating better restitution laws here in the state of Michigan, ensuring victims have more access to restitution. And I'll be proud to quarterback that through the legislature. And really, that's something I believe in. And I know that law enforcement believes in also. How can we support victims of crime? How can we impact a society so there are less victims in general? So let's talk about an excellent leader, Chief James Craig of Detroit. And you really have to talk about the city of Detroit first and the nuanced relationship between law enforcement, the community, and crime victims. And it really put everybody in a difficult situation for years, and I don't think led to the best results for crime victims. So let's talk about Chief Craig then. He's about as straightforward as the day is long. Here's the problem. Here's what we're doing as a department to fix it. Here's how we're going to get better results going forward. He's a pioneer. You know, I think he would say that the old way of doing community policing in Detroit wasn't working. So let's try to get better results. Let's institute new programs. Let's work with local organizations. Let's do new outreach to the community like we've never done before. And thanks to the chief's leadership, now you have community buy-in. You have a community that has seen a more peaceful Detroit. You have a highly respected police force, and really you've given a stronger voice to victims of crime in Detroit. Because of all this, I'm very proud to present Chief Craig with the Beyond the Call of Duty Award. And I'll just say that, Chief Craig, you're changing lives in Detroit and giving victims a stronger voice. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is an honor and privilege to accept the Beyond the Call of Duty Award from the Crime Victims Foundation. I certainly want to thank the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police and the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan for considering me for this recognition. I am truly humbled and grateful. So again, thank you. I would like to thank my executive team, the men and women in blue, and importantly, our community partners. As I've always said, no one person can do it alone, and they have certainly been instrumental in driving many of the efforts we have in place to support survivors of violent crime. This week is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. When we take the time to remember the victims of all crime and to renew our commitment to bringing them justice, now more than ever, it is very important that we as leaders continue this commitment to support and advocate for victims and survivors. Since the first day I became Chief of Police for the city of Detroit, I have worked to build a connection with the people we serve, including those impacted by heinous crimes. Through our Victims Advocate Program and the extraordinary work of our officers, as well as our social workers and community partners, we have been successful in engaging survivors of violent crime and providing them the services they need, allowing them to begin their healing process. One such effort we have recently launched is the Intimate Partner Violence Initiative that seeks to address the cycle of domestic violence early on. This gives survivors and their families access to multiple necessities such as housing, counseling services, and/or professional support. We will continue our commitment in supporting and serving the residents of this great city while also working relentlessly in seeking justice for our victims and their families. Thank you again to the Crime Victims Foundation, the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police, and the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan for this extraordinary honor. May God bless you and keep you all.
I am Senator Roger Victory, Chair of the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. April 18th through the 24th is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. This is a time to highlight the progress that has been made to date to raise the awareness of the rights and services available to victims. I'm honored to present the Crime Victims Advocate of the Year Award to Stacy Adewajishik. She's the lead survivor outreach specialist for the Survivor Outreach Services for the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. Prior to this position, she was domestic violence counselor and advocate at the Women's Resource Centers of Northern Michigan. Stacy is a citizen of the Little Traverse Bay Band of Odawa Indians. In addition to her leadership in offering direct services to victims and survivors, she is a board president for the United 3 Fighters Against Violence. This organization is a statewide tribal domestic violence and sexual assault coalition serving the tribes located in Michigan. The goals of United 3 Fighters Against Violence includes educating service providers in Michigan working with Native victims of crime about the complexities of issues Native victims and their families face, ensuring Native victims of domestic violence receive culturally appropriate services, and empowering survivors of domestic violence. Stacy utilizes her voice and her expertise by participating in public service announcements, supporting domestic violence awareness, and directly educates other service providers when called upon. Stacy works in her own community and across the state to ensure crime victims, especially Native victims, have access to a safety net appropriate services. Thank you for all your hard work, Ms. Adewajishik, and continue to be a strong advocate for our Native community.
I'm Stacey Adewajishik, Lead Survivor Outreach Specialist for the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians, Department of Human Services. I am also the Board President of United 3 Fighters Against Violence, the Michigan Tribal Coalition for Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. I also want to introduce myself in my language. Gigonka Kwen Dejnakas, Pipi Guandodem, Wakanasing Odawa Kwe, Badasagain Donjaba. I have my smudge here for courage and strength, and I have my feather here for courage and strength to get my message out there. Here at Little Traverse Bay Band Survivor Outreach Services, we provide crisis intervention, safety planning, assistance with personal protection orders, some limited financial assistance, advocacy, whether that's in housing, whether it's cultural. We meet survivors where they are at and help them with any challenges, barriers we can. We walk beside them. We don't walk in front or behind them. We walk hand in hand to assist them in their journey to healing. I'm so grateful. I'm honored. I am astonished and amazed. The feeling that I have is just of extreme gratitude and appreciation and love. Love for you all, love for all survivors, love for all advocates, victims, families, communities. So I want to thank Creator Gechi Manadu for giving me the strength, and I'm just a beacon of this work. I'm just the messenger, so to say, and it's not just me. It takes a community, it takes a team of people to help and support survivors of violence, survivors and victims of violence. And so I also want to say just a big thank you, gratitude, appreciation for the team here at SOS, Diana Izzard, Yvonne Goodrow, Keely Fry, Megan Day, our Director of Human Services, Heather Benning, our previous Director, Deneen Smith, who got these grants to start our program here at LTBB and to get to where we are today. I also want to thank Lori Jump for even thinking about me for this award. I am just astonished and coming from somebody like Lori Jump, who has done so much for this movement, for Indigenous communities, for survivors and victims, not just in Michigan, but across the nation. You are inspiring, you are a mentor of mine, and I so appreciate you, and I'm just so honored. I also want to say a big chimiwach to Sandra Pilgrim Lewis. She is also a mentor of mine and has inspired me to be where I am today, and with her help and support for our program and programs across Michigan and across the nation. Chris Kryaski for believing in our program, supporting us, supporting me for this work in our community here. For United 3 Fighters Against Violence, all staff, board of directors, we have an amazing group of people, and We really care about our communities and, survivors and victims of violence. To Leslie King, who is a survivor of trafficking, and she is also inspiring, and her strength and courage gives me that strength and courage. Thank you to the foundation and Pam for this recognition and for this vigil. I am so very thankful. And I'm just going to end and say that to all survivors and victims out there, and families and communities, that I love you. I support you. I believe in you. You can do this. You are strength, courage, and resilience. And I so appreciate and I'm so grateful for all of you and all the work that you do. Chimigwech.
I'm Debbie Kane, the Director of the Michigan Division of Victim Services in DHHS, and I'm honored to be here with you for National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And I want to talk to you about the three themes of this year's National Crime Victims' Rights Week. The first one is looking at how we can support victims of crime. And that starts by paying attention to the fact that crime exists, that it's in all communities, and it is unfortunately a prevalent part of life. It means not just the things that we read in the newspapers or see on TV, but also recognizing that for many crime victims in our own communities, they suffer in silence, that they don't come forward necessarily right away, or if at all, to deal with the issues of violence. This is specifically true in domestic violence situations, in child abuse, child sexual abuse, or sexual assault. Often victims feel that the stigma is great and they might hesitate to come forward. So remember that those people also are crime victims, and we need to always be alert for that. So as we look at that, one of the things that we think about then is item number 2, which is building trust. It's so important if someone does disclose a crime to us that we believe them and we take them where they are at that moment in time. Often as people hear a crime victim talk about their victimization, it can sound disjointed or confusing, and it jumps from place to place. Those are all natural responses to trauma, and there's something that victims take quite some time to be able to work out. But it's so important to believe them and to take them where they are, because each victim is different and each victim may react in a unique way. Each day, however, what we can do is support them with just the strength it takes to get up and go forward, the difficulty of trying to incorporate what's happened to them and how they're going to move forward with their lives. So it's important that we think about not being there to judge them or to advise them on what they should be doing or how they should be dealing with it, but rather to support the internal strength that it takes for them just to keep going forward every day. Their own journey is a personal journey. They have to pick their own path and journey to how they are going to heal and best make that happen. And you can be there to support them in whatever they want that journey to look like. And finally, engaging community. The reality is crime is about communities, and having us all involved in community makes a huge difference. Crime victims are our friends, our families, our coworkers, our neighbors, and sometimes even us. So supporting crime prevention in our community is absolutely essential and important. Pay attention to what's going on in your community. Learn about the people who are out there doing this kind of important work each and every day. People in victim service agencies and in prosecutors' offices, what they can do to provide support in your community. And again, they're your family, your friends, your neighbors. And it's important to know who they are and support the work that they're doing. It's also important to recognize what's going on in your community in terms of crime prevention and supporting that, and getting involved in the kinds of things that can make your community a safer one and a more supportive one for crime victims. Because together, when we are a community and we act that way in coming to terms with crime, we can make an important difference, a huge difference. Thank you.
If we were meeting in person, I would ask you to join us in a moment of silence where we would light a candle and invite anyone who wanted to share and remember their loved one to do so. Let's take a moment of silence now to remember those who were affected by crime in 2020 and 2021, or who are still affected by crimes that were previously committed. And in closing, I would like to thank you for watching and thank you to those who have shared moments on this video and to the deserving award recipients and their presenters. Finally, I want to thank all who have gone above and beyond to support victims and survivors of crime in your communities.